Hey, it's Sarah Burke here from the Women in Media podcast. And before we get started on a new episode, could I get you to hit like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell, whichever app you do your podcast listening in. Make sure you're all set up so you know when there's a new episode and you can help spread the word. Oh, and if you're so inclined, could I ask you to leave a review if the app that you're using does that? You're the best. All right, let's get to the show. I'm Sarah Burke, and this is the Women in Media podcast. When I reached out to make a request to have this guest on, I had no idea if she would even have time to do something like this.
I'm saying, girl, I just did my last interview on the Peloton. Okay, full sweat. I was trying to take a deep breath and then answer. I have a thing called pedal for my mental. I actually say that now. Pedal for my mental, so it's good.
What is this, interview number 200 in the last 2 weeks?
Probably around 60. Actually. We hit 50. I know we hit 50. And that's just stop counting.
My guest this week really needs no introduction. She is a platinum-selling international recording artist. She is Canada's queen of R&B and soul. She's an actor, an activist, and a mentor with too many side hustles to name off the top, but we will get into them. Jully Black is here. How are you?
I'm great, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
So I have to say, I find this all-star anthem conversation so interesting right now because I think people are just discovering what we're going to call the receipts. I love you talking about the receipts. Although you've been using your voice like this for years, people are just starting to understand that. You've got a foundation, you're mentoring other women in the business, you're in fitness, you're everywhere. Was it the pandemic that maybe led you to focus on any of these other projects? What made you really want to branch out?
Yeah, pre-pandemic, actually, it was really my mom passing away, my mom passing through. So 2017 is when I realized that life needed to be 100% meaningful. Even if it is I'm meaningfully eating Doritos, it's got to be meaningful. It's got to feel good to my spirit and my soul. I have to actually desire to do it, to be there, to take the call, to, it's all about being meaningful. And so that's when it started, 2017. 2018, I started to move into the space of kind of musical theater. I started working with an organization called the Musical Stage Company. And I did the first performance was, I believe it was the Uncovered Joni Mitchell Carole King. And I went with no entourage. No, I actually showed up by myself. I said, and my mom hadn't been gone for at least even a year yet. So I was just exploring, using different sides of my voice. And I found a family with the musical stage and with the Uncovered series. And I got to do Stevie Wonder and Prince. And then I got to do Dolly Parton. So I ended up forming a whole other family there, and being a musician and a known singer as Jully Black, the singer, pretty much most of my life. This gave me an opportunity to have no pressure and to be part of an ensemble and to contribute more so than be the thing. And so in that, gaining community, meeting new people, getting over having this whole limiting belief kind of inner saboteur around not sight reading, not being I learned by ear. So I had to get over some of that because there's some brilliant singers and musicians in that space that just look at the notes and sing it. But then they kind of flipped the compliment back to me saying, your soul, your presence, your energy, your vibe, you can't learn that at school. So that was super cool. So that's kind of how I started to journey into self-worth and really being mindful and wanting to know, I asked myself the question, what on earth am I here for? What am I here for? And the rest is history.
And part of what you just said is the reason why I thought you would just be such a fantastic guest for my podcast. Because yes, we're talking about the things that we do as our careers. For you, it's music. For me, it's broadcasting and podcasting. But at the same time, what you're putting into those spaces comes from inside, right? And what you're about. And it's amazing to me that even after the career that you've had, you just dropped the year 2017. That's when you really felt like you turned inwards.
Yeah, and especially being someone who was raised in the Christian faith. So there was always a notion of being spiritual, prayer, discernment, intuition. But I realized, especially after my mom left, that I had to establish this for myself. I learned all those things. It's like getting this degree, but are you street smart?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, am I spiritual smart? You know what I
Self
mean?
smart. Yeah.
Self smart. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self care.
So I do want to dive into like the NBA All-Star game. You've loved basketball forever. You've said that to me in an interview before. And here's like the funniest synchronicity of the last few weeks. I had Cynthia Loist on my podcast with Josie Dye. They started a podcast as well. And I do a segment at the end of this where I basically like, it's a pay it forward situation, drop a couple names of women who you think should come on this podcast and tell their stories. So Cynthia Loist brings up you, and she's like, aside from music, 100 Strong and Sexy, her foundation, like that's what Cynthia was saying. This is before you even do the anthem.
I'm I'm not. I'm trying to see if you could see. I'm actually shivering. No, like for real. I got goosebumps.
Yeah, like we had no idea that you were about to, take an international stage, national television, and drop what you dropped, a couple weekends ago. But I just thought that was hilarious timing.
Shout out to Cynthia. Shout out to my girl Cynthia. Holla.
Going back to, the NBA All-Star game. So this feels like something that you maybe manifested. This feels like something that would have been on the bucket list for a really long time. How did it come about?
2019, the Raptors were doing amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yeah, Jully, bring some of that soul. Even if it wasn't the final game, it was like, we need you to bring some of that energy. So we sent in the videos. I've done the anthems before for Grey Cup, for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
It's like, makes sense, and it didn't happen. And I was disappointed.
Why didn't it happen?
We don't know. Like all the right players were involved. Everybody that could make the decision heard it, was like, the word got back, like, yeah, you're in. Like, it's going to happen. And it didn't happen. And so I was disappointed, but I didn't stay there. Like, that's my thing too. And this was post mom, right? Mom left 2017. So now I'm a couple years into, grief and loss support and what it looks like to let go, what it looks like to surrender, what it looks like to allow. And so my team was even more disappointed than I was. But I was like, okay, I still felt the pinch. Like, I'm not one of those spiritual people that's like, oh no, just pray and it'll be okay. I'm like, no, God, what's up? I need me a man. Prayer ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Right? I got needs. A prayer ain't doing it. So, but I let it go. 2019, let it go. Kept going. 100 Strong and Sexy was like just birthed. Needed my full attention. I was recording still, but I didn't have a record deal. I still don't. I'm independent. So it's just kind of, the music thing was kind of like, not really sure. And as the universe would have it, it's one big conspiracy. Everything that happens is one big conspiracy. December, just a couple months ago, based on that 2019 submission and all of those cosigns, and a lot of those people that put my name forward don't even work for the NBA anymore, don't work for the Raptors anymore. But I was ready. And I was ready mentally because we didn't know what was going to happen with Indigenous rights, Indigenous perspectives, and, the recovering remains, all of the things. We didn't know where that was even coming around the bend. Because that's like 2020, 2021 vibes.
Yeah.
Right? So between that gap, I stopped singing the anthem. They asked me to sing the anthem on Parliament Hill. I was co-hosting. I said, no, I will co-host. I'll do my own song. I'll do all the other things. So it's funny.
Yeah.
Right? And when I have, like, one of the members of my team, Roy Perot, he's Indigenous. But we never spoke about his lived experience until Black Lives Matter. So we've been working together over 10 years, and we've been journeying through life, not talking about, this is the whole thing about the BIPOC that I can't stand. I didn't look down to the eye and be like, what's up, Indigenous? How's it going? They're not really looking down to the people of color saying, what's good? And the people of color aren't really looking back. So there's no real communication on that line. That hotline is not,
it's not that hot.
It's not that hot. It's a cold line. So just life happened in a way where we were, through sheer necessity, forced through the pandemic, to your point, to sit and see and feel. Here we are.
So I also love, just to go back to, the flip of this story in 2019, it feels even better that it happened on an American stage all these years later. You're like, hey, remember me?
Didn't go away, and now I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I could look back and say, so the grief was grief, it comes in waves. So anybody who's listening who lost a loved one, it's, you just got to jump on that surfboard basically, and you ride it, right? It's going to be a forever ride. And so, if I think back, it was so raw and so fresh, and I just didn't really know how to navigate life without mom. Mom's been there my whole life. She was there my whole life, right? And so, and even just the mindset around trauma and bitterness. I was in a very toxic relationship with somebody who's put his face beside narcissism.
Okay.
In real talk. You know what I mean? So unlearning some of the behaviors that I started to pick up trying to love this person, and so I would have pulled it off and I would have done well. That's what I do. I'm a master at singing and many things, but I wouldn't have been present. My mind wouldn't have been there. I would have been thinking, is he okay? Where is he at? Is he jealous? Does he feel good about it? It's just all that foolishness, right? So
yeah, 2019 was not the right moment. This was the right moment, 2023. So you've shared a lot on social media about your experience over the last few weeks, the good and the bad. There was a post just yesterday that, I pulled up before the interview just to read through the email that you got. Just to read a tiny bit here. You're proud to be a Jamaican, but you have lived in Canada for the past 45 years. Do you know why? Because deep down inside, you know that Jamaica is a crime-infested, drug-infested shithole filled with uncivilized jungle monkeys. You blacks need to move to and live in white countries in order to have a higher quality of life and better standard of living. I'm going to stop right there. What's going through your mind as you're reading this fucking email?
Right. One, it just so happened that I saw that email because my EA is not feeling well. And so I'm very hands-on. I'm like, let me check her box. Let me see if there's any emails that I need to see and bring forward. And so that's why I caught that email. So that's even that conspiracy.
A fluke.
No, total fluke. We're a week later.
Yeah.
Total fluke. There's other emails and they're keeping them to themselves. And so when I first saw the word Jully, I was like, oh, it's to me. That's why I kept reading.
Sure, of course.
Right? And I think as adults, we kind of know there's those energies out there. There's cruelty, there's wickedness. We live in this world. However, when someone could take the time to find that email, whether they guessed or not, because it's not attached to my website, and compose something so mean, but also so cliche. So I'm of two minds.
Right, yeah.
Right? It's like you find every stereotype, every cliche. One, I'm not even born in Jamaica. I'm born in Canada. And I just wanted to, as I read through, I did feel the pinch. I'm not Teflon. Like certain things, the Twitter trolls that I literally laugh. They're so stupid. I just called them keyboard gangsters. So you're there, whatever. Something about this one, I just had to post this one. I don't typically post all the foolishness. But people are in denial, especially like my American friends and family. They really think Canada has no racism. Like really, like actually, like you're so multicultural. You listen to each other's music, you eat each other's food.
A Canadian wrote that email.
Thanks. You stand on the street corner. Like I remember when my former band members they're from America, and they come here and be like, what? On one street corner is Asian, South Asian, black, white, same street corner? And their minds were blown, and I felt so good. I'm like, yeah, this is Canada, yo. This is how we do. Like, wake up, Canada. Wake up, world. This is also how they do.
Mm-hmm. So did you send an email back to that person, or did you just decide to,
That person sent 9 more emails.
Oh, my God.
And they're on a mission. They've attached promoters, TV people.
So much time.
So much time. They must be still on the SERB because I don't know. You ain't got no job. What's going on?
Jeez.
You got no damn job.
But anything that comes your way that's like this, I imagine you're pretty quick to spin it into something good. What's something good that's come out of the last 24 hours in those 9 emails?
Oh my goodness. To see the support, people audibly like rallying around me. We got you, all races. You know what I mean? That's the thing too. It's not like, okay, it's just the black community saying, yo, blah, blah, blah. I'm overwhelmed, like really overwhelmed. I've had quite a few cries of joy.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because this is where my spirituality comes into play. Because my prayers were, God, please have this conversation continue so that there is a dial being moved, so that beyond the flip of the one word, like, look what's happening in the news, like the timing. If you go back, for those who are listening, you can do your fact check. If you go back 5 years, what happened with Jeannie Becker in Canada Reads? I was defending an Indigenous book, The Marrow Thieves by Cherie Demeline. And at that time, Prime Minister Trudeau basically got flipped the bird by the Pope because they weren't going to apologize to Indigenous Canadians for residential school and all the things. Like, it was like, nope, we're not doing it. Sorry. 5 years later, here we are again. This time, a week ago, there's a recovery of a jawbone of a child. They find in Saskatchewan more unmarked graves. They're finding in BC more unmarked graves. I can't plan this. Oh, it's a publicity stunt with who?
Yeah.
Really? I'm good. If that's like, I need to start an agency for publicity stunts. If it's come on. So I feel like I'm protected, and even in that spiritual space. I often say, Jamaicans say this, and anyone listening, you could have this. They say, don't let your angels get fat. Put them to work. They can be chilling. They got work to do. They can be everywhere all the time, everywhere. They don't have to pay no plane tickets, no bus fare, nothing. So I believe Mummy was like walking down heaven's hallway saying, hey, protect my girl.
And we got work to do, but this ain't done.
We got work to do.
Yeah. I love all the like little things, because this story with you and the anthem, it's everywhere, all over, every outlet,
The world.
right? All over the world. Yes. Coming out of the anthem, because you're everywhere in the news right now and using like your platforms, your followings, your audience for good. What are you working on now? What's coming up next?
I know what's next is what's now. I'm being very, very present. Very, very present. I have concerts that's been on the schedule, keynotes that's been on the schedule, because we're coming out of Black History Month into Women's Month, right? So it's like going to Canada's Wonderland, like Universal Studios. This is probably the most fun I have in this time of year when it comes to especially the like community and connecting with women. It's kind of the sweet spot.
And thank you.
Connected with, it's my play. Are you kidding me? Listen, man, each one teach one, better together, building bridges, all of it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but what's interesting, this is some tea. So I won't name the parties, but there's been some political parties that have reached out offering all types of money for me to come and sing my version of the anthem and do a couple songs and take photos. So imagine now, this is where wisdom comes into play.
Yeah, which is the right moves. Yeah.
Yeah, the right moves. It's like, there's no way they want trying to put bills forward. It can't be the Jully Black bill. It has to come through and by an Indigenous person and someone that's in the ranks. But even the mindset around it's still, look at that. They're going to skip over going to the community, the Indigenous community, and come to me. Like, even that's all kinds of wrong.
Going back to your colleague you mentioned, what was his name, the Indigenous fellow?
Roy Perot.
I mean, you shared on socials that someone close to you told you how much it meant to them, that you acknowledged that in the anthem. Was that? Okay.
Yeah.
There are people who don't like those lines crossed that we sort of talked about, that they want to keep those communities separate. My lived experience is nothing like this person. You have just, in the last few weeks, put this conversation to an absolute, like, don't even, right? And so now that we're talking about, International Women's Day and Women's History Month and Black History Month, we're actually recording on the last day of Black History Month right now. How can women and female identifying people come together for discussions like this without thinking of people as others?
Wow, that's an awesome question. How can we're gonna need to lead with vulnerability. Number one, like, bring your vulnerability to the table, and bring your ego to the table too. So we need to almost feel the better than to realize we're not. It's so interesting because the ego it could play a good role It tells you a lot
It's
about
a
yourself.
self-preservation almost sometimes too.
Yeah,
And we need that too.
we need that too. I think that it doesn't have to be. I often say I wouldn't trade the one for the 99. Some people think that we need every seat at the table to be filled. It's the right people sitting at the table
Mm-hmm.
that's willing to listen, learn, and take action, right? And then take what we've learned. It's like, I'm going to go back to my faith. It's like being a disciple. So we're together, we're journeying, and then we have to disperse into our respective communities,
Mm-hmm.
and even and be like, okay, this is what I learned. Who's about it? Even if it's one, let's going back in with one more.
Early in your career, where was the first time you remember finding community? Because you were like super young when you started.
I was super young. The first time I found community, I was 16 years old in a program called Fresh Arts.
I love
in
how you
Toronto.
didn't even have to think about it. You knew right away.
I knew right away. Fresh Arts. It was a program that was implemented by actually Bob Ray's administration,
Huh.
and it was called JOY, Jobs Ontario Youth. And I left the Jane and Finch community every day in the summer. It was my first time going downtown, because that's a whole other thing about certain neighborhoods where the way urban development works. It's like your school, your church, your mall, everything's there. You don't have to leave.
Yeah.
So you don't have perspective. But I was able to leave and take a bus, a train, and a streetcar downtown to High Park. I didn't know what a High Park was.
Yeah.
And meet all these people and who are in art and who was in, even Director X came out of that program. Debbie Young came out of that program. Cardinal, Socrates, Shaw Claire, like you name it. But we didn't have alias. I wasn't Julie Black yet. I was Julianne and Dara Gordon. Cardinal was Jason Harrow. So I found community in a way that was so inspiring. I asked my mom to transfer schools to Oakwood Collegiate, and they let me. The school system, like, you can't even make that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Where it became so cool to get 90s. I was like, I'm good at a good 78. Give me a 75. I'm good. So, I realized at a young age and through that experience that you are a product of your environment. You absolutely are. Many of my siblings have diabetes. I'm an open book, but I eat differently. I live differently. So it's not genetic. It's habit. It's environment. It's what you think you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So change your thoughts, change your life. So that's where I answered directly. Fresh Arts, 1994, pardon me, not 96, 1994. And that's where it was.
And I can see in all the work that you're doing, like, I mean, you take a quick scan of your LinkedIn or your website or whatever, right? And there's foundations, there's groups, you are empowering other women, you're mentoring other women too. Mm-hmm. With Jully Black Entertainment, the way it read to me anyway was like you're maybe trying to help that young Jully Black who's trying to figure out the career steps. Am I reading that right? Kind of like a mentorship situation?
Oh, yeah. So this is the thing. So yeah, I got my first record deal at 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my frontal lobe wasn't even developed. So whatever, all the things.
You say that all the time. I love it.
The frontal cortex, man. It's, hey, blame it on the frontal lobe not being there. But I realized the power in learning your business, understanding your business. It doesn't have to be that you know it all the way through, but if somebody were to not show up for a couple hours or for a day, will your business go under? And I learned this from a woman named Margaret, who used to own the Silk Road, Taste of the Silk Road on Danforth. And I'm saying this because inspiration doesn't have to come through the channels you think,
Mm-hmm.
and mentorship and motivation. She was the owner of that restaurant, packed, awesome, used to go there all the time. Her cook quit on her, but her grandfather taught her how to cook every meal on the menu. And she didn't miss a beat. She was cooking and serving. End of the day, I always stayed till closing. And I was like, man, it's packed today. And she told me the story.
Yeah.
Right? And that she knows she's going to have help tomorrow. But today she had to do it herself. And that's what JBEI, Jully Black Entertainment Inc., that's what it stands for. You don't have to do it well. Just be able to do it.
Would you say that you're working with, some younger women who aren't necessarily even going the music direction?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, especially in the social media space
Yeah.
and content creation space. So everybody films me. I film myself. You can follow my socials. There are women in particular who, especially in the 100 Strong and Sexy, who are going through their self-love journey, their self-acceptance journey. And in that, it's like one in particular, she really wants to do content creation, but she's like, I don't look the part. I'm like, what do you don't look the part? You don't need to look apart. Like, what are you talking
You are
about?
the part. Yeah.
You are the part. And just to make a long story short, her inner voice and her online voice is so funny. She's like Chelsea Handler meets Carol Burnett meets me. Like, it's unreal. And so I was
So
like,
good.
okay, so you want to do this together? And she's like, what? So that's what I mean. Like, there's different ways that being Jully Black has empowered other people that think they'll never be able to work with me or have me as a client or whatever. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. There's also another woman in particular. She's not younger than me. She's maybe a year younger than me, but she's in a wheelchair. She's differently abled. And I have a step club, from the
Yeah.
Power of Step. And she said her mom used to bring her to the step classes in the 80s, but park her wheelchair and the mom would do her thing and then take her home. But my sister is differently abled, Maria. And so I watch my sister. She walks with crutches. She's born with a condition called arthrogryposis, the webbing of the hands or the feet. So she's always walked with crutches. And it's like a baby being born and you're not giving them meat, and they don't miss meat. They're like a vegan baby. Like, no one knows, right?
Right.
So I didn't see my sister as different. She's my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met Simone, and she was comfortable with me saying her name, I was like, you need to join the step club. She's like, I can't walk. I'm like, you need to join the step club. Your hands could work. And it's been 2 years of her being in the step club. And she showed her mom the video recently. Right. She's like, Mom, look. Yeah. Choreography, full on. I'm shivering.
I'm like tearing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
that type of thing.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh man. For someone just to think of you as a singer is a crime. Like, you look at what you have. Yeah. Jully Black is an empire, basically.
Thank you.
So tons of young people learning from you, working with you. What about something you've learned? Flip that script a little bit. What have you learned from a younger person
Oh my goodness.
working in that environment?
Yeah. So shout outs to Savannah Ray, to Jessie Reyes, those two in particular who I watched be in the similar program. Like, I was in Fresh Arts. They came out of the remix program.
Yeah.
And it's parallel programs, only ours was way before technology and social media, etc. But I watched these two young ladies really focus on their storytelling and honing their craft as a writer and singer. And so this is like in my day, so to speak. I'm still, I still consider myself young. You kind of have to choose a lane. It's like, are you a writer or are you a singer? And you look at even people like Celine Dion, who didn't write, but she's a brilliant singer. Right. So it's kind of like, so I watched them tell their stories, be totally, their music was so raw and real. And that's what, it kind of inspired my last album, Three Rocks in a Slingshot, where I was like, okay, we're going to swag it out. And I'm going to start a song saying, stay out my business. You never pay shit. Like, lyrically, I was a lot more open
Daring.
to how I speak in my everyday life and not being like, oh no, the Christians are going to think I'm going to go burn in hell. Like, they've helped me become way more free.
That's so cool. I hope Jessie Reyes and Savannah know that. That's cool. Maybe you'll nominate them at the end.
Hey.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the comment you made, not having a label right now, I mean, you just let that roll off your shoulder and whatever. But I know, as someone who works in this business, that I'm sure that's something you're thinking about. What are the things that need to align for where your music goes next?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've been without a label. This is my 10th year, actually.
Yeah, and it's like, do you need one at this point?
I want one. I've always been my own label. So that's what people don't know. I've owned my masters.
Good.
Since the beginning. I've always had my imprint, Jully Black Entertainment Inc., since 2003. So I'm 20 years in. I want one in the right way. So it's like, I'm not going to the river and washing my drawers. I have a washing machine.
Yeah.
I throw it in there. And there comes a time where I do desire a little more ease and infrastructure and a team that is not paid out of my pocket, but they're on salary to do the things to align with my in-house team. So I'm not the anti. I'm like, oh yeah, indie's cool, but indie's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And where every win is a win. That's the only thing I could say about being independent for all these years. Where before there was a bit of a gradation, a hierarchy, a big interview, a small interview, a big. There's no big and small here, people. Everything's big. Everything's big. And but I would like to. I would like to align with an international label. That's aligning with the right brands, because it's a different day. Like I could be signed to, I don't know, Nabisco Records. I could be signed to Cheerios Records. It just depends. It's just distribution. Like that's my business savvy.
Yeah.
But if they're, and actually Arlene Dickinson's one of my business mentors, and she helped me realize, hey, if you're going to put a song, you could put a song, a download, QR code on 50,000 bottles of wine, and you've just scanned 50,000 singles. So I've been, this is in the recent past. I'm like, okay, so who do I want to be the male person to deliver the music? So
Interesting.
About it.
And you're embracing like new ideas, new technology, right? Like this business moves so fast. So, it's cool.
Oh my gosh.
It's cool that you're very open-minded about all that stuff that maybe you haven't touched before, which is cool too.
Oh yeah, like TikTok. For the longest, I was like protesting. I'm like, I'm not doing TikTok. I can't do TikTok. TikTok, I can't. This is another thing. And I'm gonna name her Jen Harrison. Jen Harrison is the one, that lady I'm working with on the social media, and she's like, just don't take yourself serious. Think about TikTok as a snack. Think about it as like it's chips, it's pizza, like and just kind of put it over there. And so she sent me a sound. That's the one. If you go on my TikTok, is where I have the shower cap on, and I'm like, I do this voiceover thing, and that thing has almost 700,000 views.
You're like, all right, if this is my snack, it's fine.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think too many of us, especially in a certain age group, like, okay, I'm in my 40s, so what? Now all of a sudden, what? What am I? No more fun? Like no more. I feel like I'm just getting started.
I feel that way too. And
Right?
to your point about the label piece, right? Like if you're going to join a label, labels need to see that you are in this beginning, not an end.
That's right. Forget this whole Hall of Fame. Grateful for the Walk of Fame.
Of course.
Grateful I'm getting inducted, especially for the culture.
And congrats.
But I'm just getting started. Imagine someone who now is like secure in my skin, have financial literacy, taking care of my mental health. But like this is the time to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the last few years, left a relationship that was not working for me. I heard a lot of myself.
Oh, you too?
Yeah.
You too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were recapping my life. Okay, girl.
Yeah. I heard a lot of similarities in what you were saying about feeling like very in your own skin right now compared to then. I think something women don't talk about as they're going through these changes, like behind the scenes, is how it actually affects their business, their work ethic, all of those things, the energy, the exhaustion of going through like a breakup. How can women better support each other with those things too? Because we're used to locking it up and throwing it out.
I think we have to be more prepared to risk it all in the friendship than ever. Like, I wish some of my girlfriends had said to me, "You're losing yourself. Who are you?"
Like, even if it offends your friend in that moment, they'll thank you later.
Even if I'm like, "Yo, fuck off," like a true friendship it'll stand the test of time.
Such a good way to put it.
Because at the end of the day, to me, I look at it like being in a courtroom and someone says something out of turn so that the jury could hear it, and they say objection, and they say, okay, the judge lets them object, but the jury still heard it. So we need to say it to each other so at least we still heard it. I got goosebumps again. No, for real.
I feel like you need to write a song from the perspective of the courtroom, but as a relationship. That's so interesting.
So that could be a good video. That's a good video content.
Ooh.
Right? Hello. And then on the flip side, because I do have some friends who are married and all the things, and there comes a time where you know that they've chosen all of it for the forever, and you need to step out of it and be able to compartmentalize your friendship. Because at one point I was wrapping up my friendship with that marriage and everything, saying, yo, you know what? You are staying in that toxicity and I can't. And I was like, I was taking on too much. I had to take some space recalibrate and say, okay, I'm not married to you and your partner. I'm not friends with you and your partner. How do we now start a brand new friendship? Because it's like the ingredients are different, especially when something happens. It's like, okay, how do we start from here so that we can build into our 70s, 80s, 90s, 50s, 60s, and not be thinking about the infidelity and all the foolishness that, we had put up with.
Right. Well, I know that you are like the most sought after person for an interview right now, so I can't thank
This is
you
true.
enough.
Thank you. This is true. That's a new thing.
I can't thank you enough for this. But to wrap, if you want to nominate a couple women to come on this podcast, that would be fantastic.
500%. People I love. I'm going to nominate 3 people.
Do it.
Okay, I'm going to nominate 4.
Okay.
Okay, so it's your pick. First nomination is a woman named Lisa Washington.
Okay.
She's the first Black Canadian, Jamaican WNBA agent. She's played a big role in getting me to this All-Star break. But what she has gone through and is still experiencing as now an NBA agent and a mother, married, kids, divorced, self-made millionaire, in the boardrooms with the West Halls and blah, blah, blah. Like her maintaining her femininity, but then still having the balls up when she needs to. Look at him shivering. Lisa, Leisa, Lisa Washington.
Okay.
If you need her contact, I'll give it to you.
Okay, awesome.
For sure. Savannah Ray, 100%. Savannah Ray, she's doing all the things now, yeah, but what bugs me about our industry is that people jump on when they see the algorithm, when they see the shine, when they're seeing what happened before the record deal. What happened,
again, the receipts.
The receipts. Definitely. Jessie Reyes too. Jessie Reyes, she's so awesome. Her story is unbelievable. And I still speak to them behind the scenes. So our relationship is not public. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Did you eat? Did you drink water? How's your parents? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of thing. I'm going to stop there at 3. Those 3.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And honestly, huge kudos too. It's been amazing watching what you've done.
Thank you.
I gotta say big thanks to Charlotte, Shelby, and Dana over at Red Umbrella PR for making this conversation happen. And like Jully said, I think the takeaway here is let this conversation continue. Before I tell you who's up next on the podcast, I did want to mention, and perhaps you've seen me posting about this on social media, I'm working on an e-blast list, which basically means a home where I can give you my take on big stories that affect women and female identifying members of the media. Maybe some exclusive content, links and resources that support the things that I'll be talking about in the newsletter. If you would be down to join my e-club, please send your email to @womeninmediapod on socials in a DM, or you can email me, womeninmediapod@gmail.com. More on that in the coming weeks, but next up on the Women in Media podcast, Farah Nasser, an award-winning journalist with Global National, as nominated by her colleague and one of my best friends, Morgan Campbell. More with Farah in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm Don Amaro, and I want to welcome you to Through the Fire, a podcast about overcoming adversity, reframing misfortune, and celebrating courage. You'll likely know me best as a musician. Maybe you've heard my music or seen me perform live before. And at the heart of what I do is storytelling. How we come out of the fire may be the most interesting part of our stories. So I invite you to join us for some incredible conversations. Through the Fire is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or at donamaro.ca.
Another Sound Off Media Company podcast.